Hey, what's up, guys? So, I just had an epiphany. I've been looking for an interesting use case for ChatGPT for quite a while now, and I think I just finally came up with one. As you've seen in most of my recent content, I've been providing some constructive criticism for how the developers can improve Escape from Tarkov, and I think that ChatGPT might actually be able to help. For those of you guys who aren't aware, ChatGPT is a natural language processing chatbot driven by artificial intelligence. People use it for writing emails, writing essays, in some cases writing code. Now, I have a few ideas for different applications for this, but I think the best proof of concept could be to see if ChatGPT could help us improve Tarkov's quests. Now, I have no idea how good this is going to be or if it'll actually work. I haven't done it yet, but I suppose we might as well take this little journey together. So, let's get started. All right, so to start, let's figure out how much ChatGPT knows about Escape from Tarkov. All right, so it said, yes, I'm familiar with Escape from Tarkov. It's a popular online multiplayer tactical first-person shooter video game developed by Battlestate Games. The game is set in a fictional city called Tarkov, where players must navigate through a hazardous environment while fighting off enemy players and scavenging for resources to survive. The game is known for its realistic gameplay mechanics, intense firefights, and complex economy system. All right, it's better than I thought. Let's see how much context it has around Tarkov's quests. All right, so Escape from Tarkov has a complex quest system that adds to the overall experience of the game. The quests are given to the players by various traders in the game, and they involve completing certain tasks or objectives, such as retrieving a specific item, killing a certain number of enemies, or reaching a certain location. It's pretty spot on so far. The quests are divided into different categories, such as story quests, side quests, and loyalty quests. Story quests are the main quests that advance the game's plot. Well, okay. We're starting to lose it a little bit here. While side quests are optional and provide additional rewards. Loyalty quests are specific to each trader and involve increasing the player's reputation with them. It's like getting it mostly right. The quests in Escape from Tarkov are challenging and require the players to be strategic in their approach. They often involve navigating through dangerous areas, engaging in firefights with enemies, and managing their inventory effectively. The completion of quests is also crucial for unlocking new items and traders, which can help players progress further in the game. Okay, does it know about specific quests? Sure, I can give you an example of a quest in Escape from Tarkov. One of the early quests that players encounter is called Checking. This quest is given by the trader Prapor and requires players to retrieve a package that contains several items from a location called the Customs Checkpoint. To complete the quest, players must navigate through the Customs Checkpoint, avoid or engage in firefights with enemy players and AI-controlled scavengers, and find the package. Once they retrieve the package, they must extract from the location alive in order to complete the quest and receive the rewards. This quest is a relatively simple one, but it introduces players to the basic mechanics of the game and helps them understand the importance of inventory management and survival skills. So I'm seeing a theme here. I think that what we're going to see a lot out of ChatGPT is it getting things mostly right, but I have seen it embellish a few things or even just like fabricate things out of whole cloth. I don't know where it got the customs checkpoint thing from, but basically checking is where you go to the dorms, get the machinery key, open up the tanker, and grab the golden pocket watch. It's like, one of the most famous Escape from Tarkov quests. It did get the core of the quest correct, though. You have to basically retrieve the package and extract from the location alive. Okay, wait. Before we go any further, it just occurred to me that my understanding with ChatGPT right now, at least with the version I'm using, is that it's trained on data that's a couple of years old, maybe like 2021. So it might not have context as to some of the more recent quests, some of the more really challenging, really annoying, really difficult ones. Let's go ahead and see if we can get some context around that. Okay, right. So as an AI language model, my training data includes information up until September 2021, so I have knowledge of quests in Tarkov up to that point. However, since the game is continually updated with new content and features, I may not have knowledge of the most recent quests or changes to the quest system that have been made since then. So let's provide it with some of the newer quests so that it can effectively learn a little bit about more of the, modern Tarkov quest design. All right, so let's give it escort. Okay, so it said, thank you for the example. That's an interesting and challenging quest that requires players to be skilled in different environments and map layouts to complete it successfully. The added condition of not dying or leaving the raid while the task is active adds a higher level of difficulty to the quest. Another example of a newer quest in Tarkov is the stylish one, given by Ragman. This quest requires players to collect specific items from different maps in the game and hand them over to the trader. The items are rare and challenging to find, which makes the quest more difficult and time-consuming. Additionally, some newer quests in Tarkov have introduced new mechanics, such as using... Okay, I actually want to correct it on that, because it got the stylish one wrong. This is kind of what I was talking about. Let's see what it has to say for itself. I apologize for my mistake regarding the stylish one quest. Thank you for correcting me. The actual quest requires players to eliminate Killa, the scavenger boss in the game, 100 times. It's a challenging quest that requires players to be skilled in combat and have a good understanding of Killa's behavior and tactics. Once again, I apologize for my earlier mistake, and I appreciate the opportunity to learn and improve my knowledge of the game's quests. Is it weird that I genuinely feel bad? I genuinely feel bad when I'm like, you got it wrong, and it's like, I apologize. I actually feel bad. Oh my god, what the fuck? Okay, so it clearly has a ton of context around the Tarkov quests, even if it doesn't get it exactly right all the time. It understands a lot of the quests, the requirements, the mechanics, collecting items, inventory management, you know, killing scav bosses, traders. Let's do this. Let's give it a quest that I think historically has annoyed a lot of people. Maybe let's provide some context around why it's annoying and frustrating for some people, and maybe see if it has ideas for improving. The first one that comes to mind, I can't help it, is a shooter born in heaven. So let's go ahead and do that. So I just copied and pasted in the list of rewards and the list of requirements, as well as noting that the quest was given by Mechanic rather than Jaeger. I apologize for the confusion, and thank you for correcting me. You are right. The quest, A Shooter Born in Heaven, is given by Mechanic, not Jaeger, and requires players to get headshot kills with a long-range weapon from over 100 meters away on specific maps such as Woods, Reserve, Shoreline, Customs, Lighthouse, and Streets of Tarkov. Okay, well, you're just going to tell me everything I just told you back. So now what I'll do, just, I guess, for this first attempt, is I'll provide a kind of a short, subjective opinion on what I think is problematic about the quest, and then ask ChatGPT to see if, you know, with that in mind, it can come up maybe with ways to improve it. Yes, I am ready to hear your criticisms of the quest. Please go ahead and I will do my best to recommend ways to address your concerns and improve the quest while keeping it challenging for players. Alrighty. What I said was, I dislike that this quest relies so heavily on luck and other factors outside of the player's control. I dislike that the quest requires long-range kills on maps where there's a limited number of good vantage points that are safe to engage in long-range combat with other players. Most of these locations within the maps exist away from the most common points of interest where most players go, so it can be frustrating when you're trying to kill players who are usually avoiding all of the places where long-distance shots can occur, and what's worse, you're missing out on all of the good loot located at the major points of interest in the maps that tend to be far away from where you're sniping. You can be well prepared, ready with the right gear and ammo, and never see a player. This can make some players feel like their success is largely out of their hands. It's unfortunately the case that many of the most common places where these shots can be made involve either players exit camping to snipe people on their way to the extraction point, something many find frustrating and toxic, as well as incentivizes another annoying aspect of the flow of raids, fights that occur immediately after you spawn. The last major issue I have is that because of the way that Tarkov handles rendering things like bushes and trees and shadows, you often feel as if you're camouflaged while sniping, but to even distant enemies, you will visually stand out to them. And in order to complete this quest, you basically need to sit and wait and hope to get lucky, finding a random PMC passing by. Okay, there are some interesting ideas here. One of the things that I think worth mentioning is, like, obviously this isn't just gonna like rewrite the game and make everything better, right? But what I think the value of something like this is, kind of similar to AI generated art, is brainstorming, creativity, coming up with clever or unique ideas or perspectives that maybe you didn't think of, or maybe even saying something stupid that, you know, might inspire some better ideas from you. So let's go ahead and read. I understand your concerns about the quest to Shooter Born in Heaven. To address these concerns, I can suggest some changes to the quest that will make it more fun while still keeping it challenging for players. Firstly, instead of relying solely on long-range kills, the quest could require players to eliminate PMC operatives in different ways, such as with certain weapons or equipment. For example, players could be required to eliminate PMC operatives using a specific sniper rifle or using a specific scope. This would add variety to the quest and make it more interesting. That's actually something that I recommended a couple of years ago, where I did a video on some of my issues with the quests, and I talked about a Shooter Born in Heaven. And I had a bunch of different ideas there, but one of them was, you know, requiring one of the less used scopes, like the March Tactical or some of those other like 8x, 12x scopes. Unfortunately, most of them are kind of like unusable, especially now. But assuming that they were actually usable, you're not going to be bringing the 8x scope into factory with you. You know, like today what they would do is they would say, if you needed to, you know, use a particular gun, they'd say, like the SVD, you can't use it on factory. Because they know that even though it's a, you know, a longer range rifle, people just go in with iron sights or slap a red dot on it and will get the quest done easily. So a more creative approach to solving the problem of wanting people to successfully hit long-range kills, rather than require 100 meters or more, require that they use an 8x or more scope. That means if you happen to kill somebody at 98 meters with a headshot with an 8x scope, you're still going to satisfy kind of the heart and soul of the quest, right? Showing that you're a marksman. Let's continue. Secondly, to make the quest less luck-based, the quest could be made more objective-based. For instance, players could be required to eliminate PMC operatives who are guarding certain locations or completing specific tasks. This would give players a clear objective and make it less frustrating if they do not encounter any PMC operatives while attempting to complete the quest. Okay, so that's like kind of contradictory, but replace required to eliminate PMC operatives with raiders or rogues. In fact, I actually really like the idea of making it so that you'd have to hit, I mean, even like a 300-meter headshot on one of the rogues in the encampment on Lighthouse, right? Most of the time, they're just sitting there on a mounted machine gun, you know, even if you're like 500 meters away on the rocks. But nevertheless, I still think that that's actually kind of more interesting in a lot of cases than getting like 3 separate headshots over 100 meters on reserve, for example. They could replace either some of the maps in the list or reduce the number of headshots required on PMCs. You know, maybe let's say it's 1 on each map, and then maybe add a couple of different alternative, less RNG based targets like the rogues. Yeah, so let's say you'd have to get a 300-meter headshot on a sniper scav on customs, on a rogue on Lighthouse, and maybe like a sniper scav on Streets of Tarkov or something like that, right? Like those are changes that could be made that are less luck-based, that are just as challenging. In fact, hitting like a 300 or 400 meter headshot, even on a stationary AI, is going to teach a lot of players a lot about ballistics and zeroing. So I think that there's a ton of value in that. I don't know, so far some of these ideas are really good. Let's continue. Thirdly, to address the issue of players being forced to camp in certain locations to complete the quest could be made more dynamic. For example, players could be required to eliminate PMC operatives who are moving through a specific area rather than waiting for them to come to a specific spot. This would encourage players to be more mobile and would make the quest less predictable. I mean, the only thing that this makes me think of, really, because otherwise I don't think it makes a ton of sense, so many of the quests could be designed in such a way that they benefit the design of other quests. You know, just as an example, there's a little bit of a synergy between capturing outposts and Shooter Born in Heaven, or whatever that quest is on Woods where you need to go to the dock and like plant the balaclavas or whatever, the sunglasses. Those quests kind of work together in a way where, you know, if you want to go do a shooter born in heaven, then you might want to camp out that spot. The problem is that you still are at the whim of RNG when you're hoping that somebody else in your raid is doing that quest, that they're going to survive getting there, that you're going to survive getting to your spot overlooking the dock, things like that. But that's just something to keep in mind, you know, going forward as BSG starts to look at these quests, improve them, and, you know, do the main story quests that, you know, ostensibly they'll be doing at some point in the near future. These are all really good ideas and things to keep in mind. Now, the last thing, it basically says you should be required to eliminate PMC operatives using stealth techniques such as hiding in bushes or shadows to their advantage. I mean, that's kind of like the opposite of what I said. I said that sucks, so let's just ignore that part. But finally, it says, overall, these changes would make the quest more engaging and less frustrating for players while still keeping it challenging and rewarding. I agree. Okay, I'm back. I had to take a little bit of a break, had some technical difficulties. Had to refresh the page and then get ChatGPT back up to speed on everything. But in the meantime, I had an idea. I asked on Twitter for the whole Tarkov community to give feedback on the things that they liked and the things that they didn't like about the quest in Tarkov. What I want to do is combine all of that with some stuff that I wrote up about some of the things that I liked about a few of the quests in Tarkov. And I asked ChatGPT if it would like to collaborate together to create a new quest that might address some of these concerns and, you know, would benefit from all of this feedback. ChatGPT said, "That sounds like a great idea. Gathering feedback from the community can help identify areas where the quest can be improved and make them more enjoyable for a wider range of players. I'd be happy to review the feedback you've gathered and work with you to develop ideas for new quests and address some of the concerns raised by the community. Let's collaborate and create something great." Awesome. Now, part of what prompted this was that I wanted to not just feed the AI with my preferences, right? My preferences, the things that I think about, are obviously not like the end all be all. And so much of this stuff is subjective. So, you know, giving the AI as much context as possible, as many different perspectives as possible, will hopefully give it a better chance of, you know, coming to the best possible solution. So let me go through Twitter, copy paste a bunch of stuff, rewrite a bunch of stuff so that it makes a little bit more sense, compile that all together, pop it into ChatGPT, and yeah, I'll be back in a moment. All right, so let's see what we got. Thank you for compiling this feedback from the community about what they enjoy and dislike about the quest in Escape from Tarkov. Seems like the community enjoys quests that provide unique experiences across multiple maps, take players out of their comfort zone, advance the lore of Tarkov, respect players' time, and utilize diverse weapons. On the other hand, the community dislikes quests that are monotonous, distracting from core gameplay loops, all or nothing, force players to play in specific ways, limit gear or weapons, rely heavily on RNG, require expensive keys, and don't provide enough storytelling or character development. There are also concerns about certain quests being too difficult or time-consuming, particularly for players with limited playtime, and frustration with quests that require players to kill a certain number of players or scavs on specific maps. Additionally, some players are frustrated with the lack of in-game information about quest locations and requirements, which requires them to rely on external websites for guidance. Overall, it seems like the community values quests that add unique experiences to the game while respecting players' time and diversifying gameplay, and dislikes quests that feel like repetitive busy work or force players to play in ways that are frustrating or limiting. Yep. So now let's see, with all of this in mind, if it's able to come up with something maybe better. I then spent some time with ChatGPT on creating a new quest. I asked it to spit something out as a first pass, and it had some really interesting ideas. It even actually came up with the idea of introducing a new trader to Tarkov. We were then able to connect this trader with one of the existing traders, Therapist, and even go so far as to generate some of the backstory, some of the lore, and even get a description of what this guy would look like. I went back and forth on a few of the details, and we were able to iron out what I think is a pretty neat quest. Then, inspired by the idea of a new trader, I wanted to combine ChatGPT with another one of my favorite technologies, Midjourney, to create some new visuals for this trader. Putting it all together, here's what we've got. This is Ivan Petrov. You're introduced to this new trader through Therapist. They grew up together in the same town not far from Tarkov and went into business together after finishing their studies. He was in charge of the logistics and transportation side of their business, while Therapist handled the medical side. Petrov has a problem. He had some cargo that went missing, a large shipment of high-quality medical supplies, including rare drugs and advanced surgical equipment. Now, the shipment's destination was planned to be Therapist, but unfortunately, it was hijacked in transit. So both him and Therapist are coming together to you for help. Now, while Petrov can point you to the initial location where everything went down, enough time has passed where surely at least some of these supplies have been moved, and to where, we don't yet know. Now, the location in question where you're going to want to start your search is given to you in the quest text as well as shown in the preview image. The cool part here is that it actually does a little bit of world building because anybody who's ever been to this area of shoreline, likely doing Lend-Lease Part 1, would recognize this cart. Now we know why it was there and what it was doing. Now, what could be added to the environment is a sort of breadcrumb trail. Either boxes scattered around or flares, something like that, that the player can follow all the way to the end of the trail, which will include the first of 3 parts of this shipment, as well as an item nearby, an in-game map. Circled on the map could be the 3 buildings in the main factory area in the center of customs. All of these buildings contain vans, forklifts, shelves, pallets, all sorts of places where you could store a big shipment of medical supplies. The map would point players to this area, and they'd have to search these 3 buildings to find where the second part of the shipment was located. Now, in each raid on customs, these boxes should spawn in a number of different locations. So every time you do the quest, it's going to be slightly different. You should actually have to do a little bit of exploration and searching if you want to find it. Now, perhaps on the shipment of boxes, there could be pinned up a map of Streets of Tarkov, with a similar sort of area circled where you would have to search for the 3rd and final shipment. Now, this uses the actual in-game environment to be able to tell the story and inform the player what to do next. It gives them motivation to explore different parts of each map, is less repetitive than many of the quests that have you go look at certain locations, but whatever it is that you're looking for is in exactly the same spot every time. And also, as I mentioned before, does quite a bit of world building. The quest isn't arbitrary, it's not meaningless. The story and the motivation makes sense. This quest doesn't rely at all on RNG, and in this specific case doesn't require that you take any items out of the raid and successfully extract, meaning that this is the kind of quest you can do passively while you're doing your other raids, while you're exploring around. It doesn't have to get in the way of any other quests, and also doesn't force a particular playstyle on the player. Now, while it might not be the most revolutionary quest in the world, in my opinion, the quest that myself and ChatGPT put together in a few minutes seems, at least to me, to be kind of a fresh take on the Tarkov classic. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'd love to read in the comments what you guys thought about what ChatGPT said about Escape from Tarkov's quests. Do you think this kind of technology has any place in game design? I look forward to reading your responses.